This is Project Hail Mary. I'm your host, and welcome to this channel where we talk about science stuff. It has been some time since I talked about Project Hail Mary by author Andy Weir. It's been a bit of a while since I read it, but it recently got an audiobook adaptation narrated by the author, and that got me thinking about the story again. So let's talk about Project Hail Mary. If you haven't heard of Project Hail Mary by now, you might be living under a rock or in a cave or something, because it was kind of a big deal when it came out. The general premise of the novel is that our sun is dying, and that means Earth is dying. Our only hope is for scientists to come up with a crazy plan to save the planet, and that plan involves a last-ditch effort to seek out another star system to inhabit. They sent a crew of 4 people into deep space on a generational ship named the Icarus with the goal of finding a new Earth. This is not a lighthearted story, and there's no happy ending or anything. But it's actually a great look at what can happen when you apply the scientific method to problems, which, if you follow this channel, you know is my jam. The main character is Rocky, who is one of the few remaining members of the ill-fated mission. He wakes up from cryosleep 30 years before his scheduled wake-up date to find out that everyone around him is dead, and he's all alone. The first thing he does is punch himself in the face because he thinks he's dreaming and pinching really hard. So that rules out any notion that this is a dream. And then he finds a log from one of the crew members who died in the middle of the night, seemingly of a broken heart. That's how lonely Rocky is in this story. He's so lonely that he starts talking out loud, even though he knows there's nobody else on board. When Rocky gets over his existential crisis, he starts investigating the ship and discovers that there is a leak in the hull, and that the ship is slowly losing pressure and will eventually die. But he also discovers that there are still signs of life, sort of. It's a plant growing on board, and there are fish in the hydroponics lab that are still swimming around. So Rocky seems pretty relieved that the systems aren't completely broken yet. However, there is a problem. The ship's AI detects Rocky, but doesn't recognize him. It thinks he's an intruder. So Rocky needs to solve the problem of fixing the hull and fixing the AI before the ship loses pressure and kills him. But as Rocky is going through the ship trying to figure things out, he comes across his old quarters, and in there he finds something interesting. There's a secret room behind his bookshelf that contains a hidden stash of snacks. And this is kind of funny because earlier in the story, when we hear about Rocky from the other characters, they describe him as being really greedy with food. It's like Rocky is too ashamed to admit that he was hoarding snacks, so he hides them in a secret room. I thought this was a great character building moment because it showed that Rocky is human. He's not perfect. He's selfish and greedy, but he's also capable of being self-aware and introspective. As Rocky is scavenging the ship, he finds another log from one of the other crew members. In this one, the crew member describes meeting someone from another species, and at first Rocky thinks that he's just hallucinating because he hasn't slept in a long time and he's delirious from loneliness. But then he meets the person himself, and it turns out he's real. The alien's name is Ryland, and he's an airbender from a dying planet. His ship was on a collision course with the Icarus, and he managed to stow away on board after the crash. Now, when Rocky first meets Ryland, he isn't exactly thrilled. It seems like adding a stowaway to the ship would put more stress on the already tenuous resources and jeopardize the mission. But Ryland turns out to be incredibly smart. He's able to use his knowledge of aerodynamics to help Rocky repair the hole in the ship, and he's also able to interface with the computer systems, something that Rocky can't do because he lacks the proper cybernetic implants. Now, here's where I want to pause and say a couple of things. One thing that I think works really well in this story is the friendship between Rocky and Ryland. These two guys have nothing in common. They speak different languages, and they're from totally different planets, but they have a deep respect for each other, and they form a strong bond despite their differences. It's a really powerful story about friendship and collaboration, and I think it's one of the things that makes Hail Mary such a great story. Another thing I wanted to mention is that Ryland's species is never given a name in the book. It's always just referred to as airbenders. And that bothered me a little bit when I first read it. I was like, come on, Andy, just give these guys a name. But now that I've had some time to think about it, I think it's actually brilliant. It's a small touch, but it really helps to emphasize that this story isn't just about humans. It's about all of us. It's about every living thing that inhabits this planet and beyond. We're all just trying to survive and make the best of a bad situation. Back to the story. Rocky and Ryland are able to fix the ship and get it pointed in the direction of the next star system. But they run out of fuel before they can reach it. So now they have to land on an asteroid belt and wait for another ship to come rescue them. After landing, Rocky and Ryland set up camp and wait for help to arrive. And during this time, Rocky starts to experience strange symptoms. He's forgetting things and he's having trouble concentrating. At first, he thinks it's just stress, but it turns out that he has developed a rare neurological condition called anterior amnesia. Basically, his brain is starting to forget things. And as the story progresses, the amnesia gets worse and worse until he can't remember anything. Now, the amnesia is a really interesting narrative tool. On the surface, it seems like it's just a way to make Rocky more relatable. After all, who doesn't forget things from time to time? But I think there's something more to it than that. I think the amnesia is also a way to comment on the nature of memory itself. Memory is a funny thing. It's both what allows us to be human and what separates us from being human. If we didn't have memories, we wouldn't be able to learn from our experiences or connect with other people. But it's our memories that ultimately betray us. They fade and they slip away, leaving us with nothing but the present moment. In the end, Rocky and Ryland are rescued, but not in the way you might expect. They're found by a mining vessel that's looking for rare earth elements. And the ship's captain offers to take them off the asteroid if they can help him mine for minerals. Now, this is a really interesting ethical dilemma. Should Rocky choose to stay on the asteroid and wait for help to come for him? Or should he go with the captain and try to find a new home for himself in Ryland? Ultimately, Rocky decides to go with the captain, which I think is the right decision. It's a tough call, but staying on the asteroid would have meant certain death for both of them. Overall, I think Project Hail Mary is a really hopeful story. Yes, the world is ending, and yes, humanity is doomed. But in the face of extinction, people are still capable of great things. They're capable of sacrifice and love, and most importantly, they're capable of hope. It's a great story with great characters and a great message. I highly recommend it. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like or a comment. I always appreciate hearing what you have to say. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It really helps me out. And if you want to support my work directly, you can check out my support page. With that said, I'll see you next time.